the awkward moment before 7. We're all waiting for the clock.
I think that clock is.
No, he's here. He's on his. He's waiting for the elevator.
For the elevator. Oh, was he 90 years old?
Not gonna criticize.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone. Alice, can you do a roll call for us?
Yes. Alderman Petrakos?
Present.
Alderman Capadona?
Here.
Alderman Gilogly?
Here.
Alderman Smith?
Here.
Alderman Deskin?
Here.
Alderman Vandermeer?
Here.
Alderman Perretta?
Here.
Alderwoman Bartleson?
Here.
8 present.
All right, fantastic. Steve, our chaplain, police chaplain, you want to open us in prayer today, please?
Dear God, we just want to thank you for our great city of Lockport and how you're blessing it. And I just thank you for each one of our leaders that are here helping us run the city. And I ask tonight that you would just give them guidance and direction and wisdom to make the right decisions. And once again, I just ask for our fire personnel and our police personnel, God, that you would just keep them safe out there when they go on calls. Lord, that you would give them wisdom to figure things out when they're in situations. And thank you again for everything you've done for our city. Amen.
Amen. Thanks. Well, tonight we have the honor, as we do from time to time, to honor some of our schools. And tonight it's Taft. So, if you don't mind, Pete, if you can meet me over at the podium here. Now, normally we do these things at the end. It has a short attention span, so I agreed to move it up. But look, congratulations to the Taft School 7th grade girls basketball team for winning sectionals and making it to the IESA state tournament. That is a great accomplishment. We really want to congratulate you. Can all the team members come on up, though, please? And Pete, if you don't mind, come on talking to the microphone. If you can just name everybody so we know who they are and just tell us about your long, hard road to the state.
All right. So we finished up the season with a record of 19 wins and 1 loss. It's a very hard working group of girls. This is the 3rd year in a row Taft has made state with the girls basketball team, so that's a pretty good accomplishment too. So 19-1, we ended up losing the first game of state. It was a tough game. We played really well, but the good news is we'll be back next year to try doing it again as 8th graders. So my girls here, I have Casey Leocone, Jade Hodak, Anna McGraw, Kaylee Zukowski, Leah Panazzo, Jessica Mueller, Caitlin Andrea, Katie Griffin, Brooke Sarton, Rylan Prince, and Heather Heinz. And I have a manager back there too, Brianna Zukowski.
Well, you know what? Thank you guys so much for your hard work, and I thank the parents that are here too. I mean, your dedication is just as important, making sure that you know your girls are getting to practice and getting them here on time, and making sure they're getting the right amount of sleep and still doing their homework. All those things are about the parents, and thank you for all that you do as well. Pete, I know Pete, you know, fairly well. He's a good guy, and I appreciate all the hard work you put into it and your dedication over there at Taft. And we really are proud of everything you guys have done. thank you so much. Here's the certificate that we as a city have made, so thank you again. Thank you very much. And as I always say, we're not offended if you get up and leave, so don't worry, you don't feel like you have to sit through it all. But there are some cool things tonight. We're going to talk about a new hotel and a movie theater, so there are some cool things on the agenda. All right. One of the things I want to, do we have anything from our liaison reports?
I do. If you recall, a month or so ago, the chief spoke about a new program that he's kind of spearheading. It's called Safe Passage. It's for people that wish to get off of drugs. One of the things that is kind of endemic throughout Will County is there's a lot of heroin in Will County, and there's a lot of heroin in the surrounding areas, and it has this situation that has hit Lockport multiple times over the past couple years. That, of course, people don't hear about it, but so this is just something that hopefully the Deputy Chief Huff can go ahead and just give a little bit overview of what the program actually is.
The goal of Operation Safe Passage is, to quote the chief, is to solve a problem that we can't arrest our way out of, which is any kind of substance abuse. It's not just Lockport, it's a nationwide epidemic. And what we're learning is that simply making arrests will not solve this issue. We have to cure the underlying disease of the addiction. What Operation Safe Passage does is a partnership between the Lockport Police Department, the Lamont Police Department, and the Mokina Police Department, the Will County Executive's Office, and a Man and Recovery Foundation. And it's for the Lockport section of that any Lockport resident between the hours of 9 to 5 can walk into the Lockport Police Department and ask for help. And hopefully within an hour, we'll have a volunteer on scene transporting them to treatment. Whether they have private insurance, state insurance, or no insurance, we're going to get them treatment and help. So ideally, we'll see the same successes that Cambridge, Massachusetts has seen. In addition to just the lives saved, they've seen a 30% reduction in criminal rates that are typically associated with addiction, burglaries, retail thefts, things of that nature. So we want to hit the drug dealers where it hurts, take away their clients. If you take away their clients, free them of addiction, they don't have people to sell drugs to. That's the ultimate goal of the program.
Well, it's very commendable. I really am encouraged by the proactive stance that the department has been taking on this. So I want to thank you and the chief and the others in the department that are working hard on this. So thank you. Anything else, Darren? No. Okay, good. Anybody else have something? One thing I do want to bring up tonight is the formation of a new committee. I think at our last council meeting, there was an issue that came up between us and another governmental body, the high school in this case, and it was an unresolved issue. And those things happen from time to time, and I feel like maybe it wasn't the best way to handle an unresolved issue was here at the council, and so doing it the proper way is through channels. And in this case, I'd like to form a Lockport Intergovernmental Committee that's made up of our different entities, whether it's the school districts, the township governments, the library districts, the park districts, the fire districts, forest preserves, all these different governing bodies. If we can have representatives there and we meet, and as we get tighter with this committee, we could figure out when we meet. And so these are opportunities to work towards resolution for any outstanding issues, and then those folks can go back to their respective bodies and present the findings. And I think that's a good way to handle it and to resolve issues. So I know Alderman Petrakis has been asking me about that for a while, and I've asked him to. It's a good thing. So I've asked him to chair it. That's your reward. So what we'll do is, Jim, is take the lead on that. We have a list of all the governing bodies and the contact information. If you could start the dialogue and look at what kind of schedule this would be, how often we should meet, and these sorts of things, I think it would be a great step to resolving any kind of outstanding issues in the future. So, and I think, because what ends up happening is there was a connotation that the school district and the city don't work together well, and that's not true at all. I think there's been a great relationship for a number of years with the high school, and, we've partnered on a number of projects. And so, just like anybody, there can be something that's unresolved, and we just want to make sure that we get those things worked out in the right way. So I acknowledge that there was, an issue to work through, and we'll get it done. We'll get it taken care of. So Jim, thank you for, he did volunteer, actually, so. Okay. Moving on to the next stuff, we'll go to our first agenda item here, which is Pam Hirth with PZ1.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. As you may recall, this item was originally presented on January 4th. It was subsequently tabled to tonight's meeting in order to discuss a pending issue on a separate matter related to a sidewalk project. I had presented the report previously. In summary, the school district, high school district, is seeking approval of a special use permit and final development plans for the construction of 2 separate additions to their building. One which would be a 7,500 square foot multi-purpose room, and the other will be a 19,700 square foot 11 classroom addition. The public hearing was held at the Plan and Zoning Commission on December 13th. By a vote of 6-0, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the 2 requested actions. Because of it being tabled till tonight's meeting, we would ask that the council allow us to place this on the city council meeting to follow for final action.
Okay. Thoughts, questions?
Mayor, if I could make a comment, I also wanted to clarify a few comments from the last meeting regarding the law and this issue. I know we deliberated, a discussion had ensued afterwards in regards to fees and who is paying what. Customarily, the city has had a past practice of waiving fees for governmental entities. The Park District, the Township, the Fire District have all come through in the last 6 months, and we've done this same process where we only charge them fees that we incur as a pass-through. And so we will be doing this same thing customarily for the high school. The debate was confused a little bit further because the law changed recently, and basically any government entity, municipality, county, township, when it comes to schools in particular, they have to make reasonable efforts to streamline the zoning application and review process, and they have 90 days to do so. So I just wanted to clarify that, yes, we are going to be trying to ask for your approval tonight on both Committee of the Whole and City Council later this evening.
Okay, sure. Any questions about the project from the council? I think it's a great project. We thank you again for the investment that you make in our community from the high school. I think what you guys have presented here is going to be a great asset to our students and to the community as a whole. If everyone's okay with this, we can put it on the agenda for tonight for a vote. Good?
It would be an action item.
And we'll put it out for an action item, Alice. Thank you. All right, CA1.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My item CA1 is City Hall flooring renovations. If you recall, back in 2014, we had some architectural and some work done in this council chambers. A lot of it was AV improvements, but we also renovated the flooring and some of the walls. In 2017, the budget allocation included funding to complete some additional renovations here at City Hall, especially the flooring on the 2nd and 3rd floor. You may have even noticed coming in tonight that there's paint everywhere. We have staff painting and doing fixing on walls, and we're combining locations would be a great thing to bring the staff from the CED building over here to City Hall. So our recommendation tonight is we have our Birdie Building Solutions, our construction manager for this project, got multiple proposals for the flooring plans that were put together by Bouchard, Mitchell, and architects. 4 companies were invited to submit these proposals. We got 3 responses. These are itemized in your council memo. The low bidder was Urban Tile and Carpet Corporation for $69,900. We are seeking, if you look in your packet, there's another breakdown in regards to costs involved for dumpsters and final cleaning and insurance and construction management. So the total construction cost estimates at this point are $83,000 and $89. I'm asking for approval to not exceed $90,000, which which would be about an additional $6,000 plus dollars in case we run into trouble. I know that some of the flooring on the first floor stairwell is uneven. We're gonna have to do some grinding. We're not sure how many hours that will take. As we've noticed, some of these problems in the flooring, there's some creaking, and so we're probably gonna have to replace a couple floorboards, and we're just not sure how many. But in lieu of coming back to the council again to spend an additional $2,500 for things we can fix on the fly, I'm asking for a little additional approval than the contract is offering at this time.
All right, thoughts, questions, concerns?
So, question that I had, I forgot to ask,
Sure.
we advertise?
Actually, they do that for us. Yeah.
They advertise?
Well, no, for this, we seeked bids. We did not put an ad in the Legend or the Herald News or anything like that. So we went, these were all, we were seeking prevailing wage bidders, and, you know, for a type of project like this, we're okay with that. We always encourage local businesses. One of the bidders was Marshall Tile.
Okay. For the future, so everyone knows, I had a conversation also with Ben about that. We can train staff. I'd rather take that money for paying for a construction manager. I'd rather train staff, get somebody that can actually do this, so we can do these bids ourselves, like other municipalities. So we'll have more. This one kind of got to the point where it's out to bid. So, but I think in the future we can do a lot of this stuff ourselves and get out there and advertise it and so forth.
So in other words, it's the way we do bids, it's not just, you just put it out there, we have a construction manager, so.
There's a construction manager that's actually doing this. And construction managers are valuable. I think at a job this small, we could probably do without some of those things, because it's just single bids. It's not complicated projects. It's not hospitals or anything like that, right? So it's just carpet, so, but helping staff to figure out how we can actually do this ourselves, I think would be money better spent.
Seems like a worthy goal. Any other comments, questions? Is this something you could look for on a consent agenda, Ben, or you need it?
That'd be fine. Yeah, if everyone's comfortable with that. We need to get the flooring done.
All right, we'll put it on consent, Alice.
Thank you. Okay, I did hand out some handouts at each one of your seats tonight. I emailed them to you as well. These are just tables that match the dollars that are discussed in your council memos. We'll start with, there's two items here. The first one, CA2, is an economic incentive agreement between the City of Lockport and Lockport Square LLC in regards to a hotel complex at Lockport Square. As you know, the southeast corner of 355 and 159th Street, we call Lockport Square. It has been purchased by Lockport Square LLC. Back in 2013, the city approved the first amendment to an existing development agreement that revised the sales tax incentive component of that development agreement. You know, back in 2013, those changes were basically the split was a 1% of the tax. There's a 2% sales tax, 1% is by referendum, has to go to capital for the city, so that's non-negotiable. But the other 1% is negotiable, and at that time, in 2013, we decided that the developer could receive 60% of 1%, and the city would receive 40% of 1%. That amendment also that is capped at $12 million, and that amendment also included a kind of a one-time bonus of $1.5 million. So if they had a mutually agreeable tenant of 50,000 square feet open by December 2017. So this current proposal for the hotel, the construction is about a $14 million project. It would occupy a prominent location in the shopping center. Coincidentally, in 2013, the city also approved a tax ordinance in regards to a hotel motel tax of 5%. And this would be the first hotel built in Lockport that would be subject to this tax. The tax would be capped at $3 million during the rebate agreement. The developer can use this money to help offset the cost for construction and operations and the years of this 20-year agreement. Currently, Lockport is at 5%. Romaville is at 9%. Bolingbrook is at 10%. Joliet is at 7%. So, if the council in the future would like to increase the 5% to 6 or 7 or something like that, that additional increase would not be subject to this agreement. So, if a reason or an an initiative to increase revenues on the hotel motel tax, then we would keep that all ourselves. That is exempt from this agreement. I just want to clarify that. So the hotel developer has also requested some relief in some of the tap-on fees and payable permit fees that are usual and customary with a project of this nature. We guessed them at this point with what we've seen in drawings and square footage. Without a full submittal, it's hard to pick an exact number, but we estimated that this would maybe be about a $350,000 worth of fees involved in this process. Of course, just like we have, we like to do is anything that we incur as cost, we can provide to or send to them as a pass-through reimbursement. That would be excluded from the $300,000 in credit for these fees. So if they need to buy water meters from us, we pay for those water meters, they pay us for the water meters. If we have J.J. Bennis do some reviews or plumbing inspectors do work, then they would have to pay those fees. But the tap, basically, it's really the tap-on and building permit fees that they're looking for a waiver of. We've commissioned a hotel study. We feel that a national hotel could be something that would make sense here in Lockport. The studies show there's demand for at least one hotel here in Lockport of a full-service amenity. We've researched other communities and seen what they've done in regards to incentives. And some do them, some don't. We've looked at this as an opportunity to help build the growth in regards to what's happening at Lockport Square, that it would help trigger other anchors and opportunity here. And so I know we've got Jim Purito standing at the mic already, Jim, so if there's any questions about the memo or the documents, we can get to those, but maybe Jim could kind of go through his proposal for us and continue on.
Well, and hey, welcome, Jim. Before we start, maybe I just kind of want to recap the big picture. Lockport Square after the recession sat empty, was in receivership, which meant nothing was going to get built until someone bought it from the bank. As some of you were on the council at the time when we, came on as mayor, and we worked hard to find a buyer. It took some time. We went through a couple before we were able to find a group who purchased it. And then, we had the hard work of trying to build a green field, and that's very tough. We see development, and we all get frustrated as a city. It's like we see development around us, but, there's a constant infill. They're next to other developments, and they're next to existing anchors, and so we see, the momentum going out there. But Lockport Square has been very difficult because it's just a big empty field. I think we worked hard to do the things we needed to do to get momentum there. We lowered tap-on fees for housing, got our housing starts, began our business parks build-outs for daytime crowds, and got a lot of good economic development going on, which meant we started to see some outlots get built. And while that, may not seem like a tremendous feat, when you really look at like the exit south of us, where the hospital is, there's no outlots going up there. When you look at, the outlots by the Target in Lamont, empty. So the fact that people were started to build here was good and showed that it was a good space to be in. And as we've heard, Panera Bread signed a contract for one of the other lots as well, so we can look at that momentum. The next big struggle, though, was getting people in the back. And as I've gone to retail conferences over the last couple of years, there's always a lot of interest. Everybody keeps kicking the tires, but the thing that all the retailers struggle with is who's going first in the back. And so getting some momentum in the back of the development is crucial. It takes it from a green field to a development that's got momentum. So, the two things that, Jim Puritan was coming here tonight to talk about, I think have the potential to really, turn that empty green field in the back into something that's active. And so we can stop seeing people kick the tires and actually take their LOIs and turn them into contracts. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight, Jim, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. I'm Jim Puritan. I'm a partner in the ownership of Lockport Square. First, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what the mayor said, but I want to give you a background of update on the project and kind of then explain the request here before you tonight. I've also got the hotel people here to give you the inside story on what's going on there. Before I do that, let me start. Okay, that didn't work.
PowerPoint at the bottom of the bar there, I think.
That tricky mouse.
It is.
PDF,
How do I change now from one to the?
the arrow button there or F5.
None of them are on.
Right?
This one, if you
Oh,
want to.
that one, that's fine, okay.
Our side doesn't work.
Sorry. Let me start at the beginning. This is what everyone expected in 2007. It was a 400,000 plus square foot retail center, anchored by Target on one end, Home Depot on the other, and there was literally commitments for 70% of the remaining space. But the economy unfortunately had other ideas. The project literally fell apart before it could get out of the ground in 2008. Our ownership group closed the short sale purchase of the property 3 years ago this spring. I was kind of surprised when I wrote that down. I had to look, it's been 3 years, longer than I expected. At that time, as you know, the only building on the property was the Express Medical Building. Target had closed its land purchase, but just about that same time, we discovered they decided to sell the property rather than build the store. The property was poorly maintained because it was a bank asset and needed considerable TLC. After we closed the purchase in 2014, we immediately launched a significant marketing program. We engaged two powerful retail leasing firms in a little bit of an unusual joint venture. Metro Commercial had done all the previous deals for the previous owner and also represents significant junior anchors like TJ Maxx and Burlington. Mid-America, another Chicago retail juggernaut, leases prominent properties throughout the suburban area, but also represents probably half of the retailers moving around in the marketplace. With these two firms, we knew we had the waterfront covered, and we thought we'd maximize our successful capture of retailers for the property. Like most people in the industry, we thought it was just a matter of time until Anchor and Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards and everybody decided they're gonna, okay, we're back on, let's start building stores again. We focused on the anchors because, as the name implies, obviously, they literally attract other smaller tenants. In the old days, you got a Target, you immediately got all the other soft and hard goods with it. They relied on Target for their market studies, actually. So as a result, we have consistently and frequently approached anchor tenants over the course of the last 3 years. The mayor and city staff, as I mentioned, have come to a number of conferences. We've joined together. We've met with Home Depot representatives at least 4 or 5 times. We tried to change Target's mind. We met with Target 6 or 7 times. Our brokers are in the face of the other brokers on a semi-monthly basis at least. And Home Depot did reconsider twice and said no again twice because of the Homer Glen store. It was too close.
Can you give a reason, like, kind of why you feel like Target wasn't able to build, or Home Depot?
Well, this is kind of the next point. Whether these results could change in a moment's notice, which is why we keep doing it. If nothing else, retailers are extremely fickle. What they decide one year, they can change and they come back the next year. But we have not been able to secure a traditional anchor, which is any one of the first 3 lines in that slide. But let me note, it's not a condemnation of Lockport Square. This is why. Anchor tenants today are not actively expanding their traditional stores, period. For example, before 2007, Target opened about 75 new stores a year throughout the U.S. In 2015, Target opened 1 store over 100,000 square feet in the entire United States. In 2016, I think the number is 6 or 7. There are similar stories for other anchors, unfortunately. Last Friday, when I made my last contact with Lowe's, we heard they've now decided they're doing 20 stores nationally and none in the Midwest or the Plain States. We've been redlined. Others like Meijer said, well, maybe, but check back after our nearby store sales increase, whenever that is. As you know, they opened nearby. So we've tried and we keep trying and won't give up, but we're at the point now of doing what else. We also, just for the record, tried less traditional anchors, the last 3 lines, or 4 lines on there. Got a little way with a couple of them and then didn't have a lot of success. So we've tried non-traditional anchors as well as traditional anchors. However, when we repurchased the property, we did know that there was a market of restaurants and retailers that like to be in outlot locations. So in 2015, we constructed our multi-tenant building on Lot 7 with Mattress Firm, AT&T, and Sport Clips. We had one tenant leased and then decided not to open, but we probably have 2 or 3 tenants that are going to land in the two remaining spaces in the next 3-4 months. So we're going to fill up that building and hopefully get another one ready to go. In 2016, we stretched to make a deal with Panera for Lot 5. Talked to them last week, and they say they will be submitting their plan for city approval, starting the process with Plan Commission next week. We also concluded our negotiations with Target. We've been talking with them for a year and a half since they didn't want to build. We said we should buy your site. We did purchase their parcel, which is kind of roughly outlined in red there in 2016. Plans for the Target parcel include a Holiday Inn Express and a movie theater. We've been negotiating with both of these for over a year. In fact, we've been talking about the incentives for the theater. I remember a memo I sent to Ben. We had a meeting on December 8th, not 2016, but 2015. And it's taken that long, and you'll find out we're not quite there with the theater yet. Each of these deals are a stretch in the sense the operators view themselves as coming into a market a little earlier than they'd want to be. They don't like being pioneers. It's the old story the mayor was talking about. The 2 tax proposals in front of you are the result of the fact that we need additional incentives beyond the generous support the city has already provided in order to get the hotel and movie operator to Lockport. Together, these 2 uses, as the mayor suggested, will not only take care of a good portion, good corner of the property, the old Target property, but it will attract, get our momentum moving down the line on the rest of the rear part of Lockport Square. You get the rear, the front happens. Finally, I want to share with you that in spite of the fact we do not have an anchor tenant, we are making some progress with junior anchors. Let me explain this a little bit. These are the guys that were pilot fish that followed the anchors around. Junior anchors like Ross, Burlington, TJ Maxx, Dick's, Michaels have been expanding during the last 4 or 5 years in particular. They have just about finished filling up space. I mean, Ross came to Chicago for the first time 2009, I guess it was, sometime in there. They've got 25 or 30 stores at this point. A retailer then likes the economies. They like to cover a market, trade area entirely. So Chicago Metro, they'd say, where are the holes now? The holes that are left are places like Lockport where there are not second-generation spaces. So these guys are now faced with how do we complete our market penetration for Chicago Metro, but there aren't any second-use spaces available. We're going to have to go into new spaces. So now they're beginning to talk to us, where they all said it's, oh, Lockport's the next place. It's going to be the next place. Now they're beginning to talk to us. So the time appears right. They're expanding. They have a need. We can fill the need. We're getting closer. We're currently negotiating letters of intent with several junior anchors. But let me temper your enthusiasm just a little bit. An anchor tenant without a junior anchor is without an anchor tenant are like a flock of birds on a telephone wire. They come and go, arrive from nowhere, settle down, flit around. Our task is to get the lead birds of the flock to sit down long enough so we get a whole group of them to sign up at once. And that's been kind of the difficulty. We've got a couple of domino firms, if you will, that if we get them signed up, the others will say they'll sign up. So we're close, but not there. I'm cautiously optimistic we can get it done, but we need to be cautious. So tonight, anyway, there are 3 proposals in different parts of the agenda before you hear tonight. Later on is the reduction of letter of credit, hotel agreement, and theater agreement. Let me just quickly, while I have the podium here, talk about the letter of credit. When we, as part of the restructuring of the various developer agreements with the city, when we purchased the land, we agreed to undertake about $1 million work program, which is called Phase 1 Improvements, which focused on some remedial work in the storm sanitary water systems, a lot of work in the detention native plant areas covered by the Army Corps of Engineer permit, the troublesome right-in, right-out, they're called pork chops here, but if you remember the right-hand eastbound lane going toward the tollway had these concrete bumps in them. It was intended to divert traffic into the shopping center. IDOT regretted that they were ever put in place. You didn't like it, we didn't like it, It took IDOT 9 months to be convinced that we should be able to take it out. So anyway, we took this out last year. But that was the kind of work. In addition to that, we did some improvements on the interior roadway, like putting asphalt on the top layer, street lighting, adjacent trees, and did some remedial landscape work along Edelman where the trees had died. As part of that agreement, we put up a $2 million letter of credit, and in the prior 2 years, that amount has come down as the work has been completed. So tonight, $150,000 was sort of a maintenance for the last part of the work, which is the work was completed well over a year ago. So that's point number one on your, later in the agenda tonight. Second, the hotel tax incentive agreement is before you tonight. And I'm pleased to publicly announce that Lockport Square will soon be home to Holiday Inn Express. We're locating it in this diagram. You can see the existing medical building, and the hotel location is behind the medical building, up along the freeway. So it's in the park, what would have been the parking lot for the Target. Holiday Inn Express will be developed, owned, and managed by affiliates of Janko Group, who you know are the largest investor in Lockport Square. As the market is yet untested, the hotel does need incentives in order to be economically feasible. However, since the hotel is only a low volume and does, very little retail sales, existing ownership can't provide a share of our sales tax initiative to the hotel. The hotel needs its own agreement. So that's the result of the hotel tax incentive agreement that's before you tonight. At this point, let me turn the program over to Greg Spanos, Janko Group, developer and operator of the Holiday Inn Express, to give you kind of a tour. John Brook, COO of Janko Hospitality, will be the manager. Sister company is also here tonight.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. We're honored to be here. I'm Greg Spanos, Managing Director for Janko Group. As Jim mentioned, the master developer here in Lockport Square, and what will be the developer of the Holiday Inn Express here in Lockport. Jim gave you a little bit of background on the project, but a little background on Janko Group as a developer and a hotel developer. Obviously, as you are probably aware by now, we've been involved with the community here for some time, but we're a multidisciplined, diversified, privately held development company focused on lots of different product types, but specifically very, very focused of late in the last several years on hospitality development and investment. I oversee that development and investment. We've got multiple projects happening right now, both acquisition and development. And we've certainly had this opportunity on our radar for some time. Jim and I have met periodically over the last year and a half and talked about this, and we've had a number of conversations with Ben. And I've really candidly enjoyed working with Ben and the mayor, and you've got a great community here to work with, very business friendly, so I commend you. As Jim mentioned, our Holiday Inn Express will be on the site that you see on your screens there, plus or minus 2.2 acre site. And what we're intending to do here is sort of mimic a design that's been very successful for us in Galesburg, Illinois. We recently developed and opened an 81-room Holiday Inn Express down in Galesburg, Illinois, an L-shaped structure very similar to what you see here. We're 81 rooms down in Galesburg. Here we're intending to be up to 90 rooms. We've yet to finalize our programming and our design, but I'm going to flash through some images of what you'll see down in Galesburg, which I think will be very similar to what you'll see here in Lockport, with the exception of probably an upgraded exterior appearance to reflect the existing design and architecture within Lockport Square to make it sort of congruent with the rest of the development. Oops. You don't need to zoom, you need to move slides. Here's the existing entry in Galesburg. It's a porte-cochere extending out in front of the sort of the V of the L shape in the building. So it's a 3-story structure, wood frame construction. A little further away view of the Holiday Inn Express in Galesburg, which was built on a very comparable size land site in Galesburg. look at the front desk pods. This is a look at the interior lobby from the front desk pods. As you could tell, very clean, modern, simple but sophisticated look and feel. This is the new Formula Blue design package for Holiday Inn Express. This rolled out literally as we were opening our Holiday Inn Express. We've actually been awarded a new Hotel Design Excellence Award from Holiday Inn Express, which we don't take lightly. There were hundreds of Holiday Inn Expresses built in the last 12 months, so we're very proud of what we accomplished down there in Galesburg, especially having been a pioneer, I guess I'd say, with this new prototype design. This is a look at a king guest room. Obviously, as you can see, sort of state-of-the-art looking, very comfortable feeling, very clean, light colors, bright, modern, stylish. Look at the guest room, bathroom. Bright, clean, simple, clean lines. This is the breakfast area where we serve complimentary breakfast to our guests. If you haven't experienced a Holiday Inn Express Cinnabon, you should. You'll probably not stop at one like me. In terms of timing, we're looking at a site plan at re-subdivision late spring, and ultimately a construction start likely late summer 2017 with an opening likely fall 2018. In a perfect world, we'd align our process with the movie theater that Jim is going to talk about as well, but that's the likely time frame here in terms of groundbreaking and opening. All right. Jim, back to you.
Well, thanks for the presentation, appreciate it.
He's available for questions as soon as we get through this. Let me talk a little bit about the theater. The third it's a conceptual approval or discussion at this point. The mayor and the tenant, as yet unnamed, and I've had conversations over the last week, and I'm a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. The client won't let me name them publicly, but then again, you should not be expected to approve something unless you know who's buying it, basically. So here's what we decided to do. Here's the proposal that they need is going to be before you tonight. Talk about it in concept. If you're good with the concept, I'll go back, get them signed up. They aren't formally signed up in the contract. Again, it's been only a year and a half. We'll get them signed up in the contract. We'll come back, and you can formally ask them questions and go for the approval. So that would be the...
If I could chime in, Mayor and members of the council, what we were thinking about doing is, there are two items on your agenda tonight, CA2 and CA3. These are both incentive agreements, one for the hotel, one for the theater. The hotel, I think we could proceed where we have it as an action item on the next council meeting. What my thought was, review, take feedback and questions on CA3, which is the agreement with the theater, and we could bring that back once they have kind of finalized a contract with the petitioner of the theater.
Jim, I'm very familiar with who they are and
Right.
their concepts. Can you share with the council any kind of details about like what kind of theater it is?
Let me talk a little bit. The reason we have a sales tax agreement. The reason we need more is they're not paying much for the land, so we need to get some sales tax. We're giving some of what we would have gotten normally to them, but they're also asking for more than we're getting. Is really what the reason for the sales tax. So it's a stretch for both of us, but again, I think they and the hotel kind of help the rest of it, hopefully to accelerate. We talk about this unnamed theater company. They're a large operator. They're a public company. They've got over 50 theaters, including a half dozen or more in the Chicago area. So it's a name you'll be familiar with. You'll like it. What they have planned for Lockport is what they consider their latest concept. It's dinner with a movie, as opposed to movie with popcorn. They're all moving that direction, but as you can see from the screen here, they're talking about serving meals literally in the theater. They may or may not also have a restaurant that doesn't have a theater associated with it. So it becomes a restaurant operation with a theater as opposed to a theater with popcorn operation. They will have large, comfortable seats that everybody has to have now if you're going to a theater, reserved seating, that kind of good stuff. But again, the emphasis that's going to distinguish this one from many of the others is you actually have some table areas in the theater, so it's much more like a theater. So, again, the process for the theater is, if you're in concept that this makes sense, I'll go back, get them signed up. They promise they'll sign. They promise the mayor they'll sign even. We come back, give them more of a show on what theater's going to look like, number of screens, square footage, site plan, that kind of stuff. And then ask for approval of the sales tax amendment. Then we'll go through the site plan, final plat process. Again, just the reason the subdivision thing came up with the hotel, Target's parcel is this big, and we're dividing it into 3.5 pieces, basically. So we need to re-subdivide that Target parcel, basically, for any one of these to happen, which is just a bump in the road kind of process. So to wind it up, these are the three things in front of you. The letter of credit reduction comes later. Hotel tax incentive. I think you can move on to or discuss and move on. The hotel, we're just looking for some conceptual support for it so we can finish the process later.
Okay. Does that make sense, everybody? I mean, the theater was like, look, I know who they are. We've been talking with them for a couple of years, but they said whatever sales tax incentive they need, I said, look, we can approve it in concept, but you guys, if that's going to help you, if that's what makes it for them to sign the contract, that it's tentative still on our sales tax agreement, at least they'll come back and then we can discuss it in full once we see who the user is. And that'll be the presentation, so.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, the second memo is very similar to the one I just read earlier. There's a couple points to point out. It's obviously sharing of that 1% sales tax dollar. It would only be the effective sales tax on that parcel with the theater and restaurant on it. The thing to point out is, in order to trigger that mutually agreeable anchor tenant as a theater and to get that up from 12 million to 13.5 million, there's a specific line in here that talks about a date for opening, right? And so what the old contract said was, to get that incentive, you needed to open something before December 31st, 2017. The petitioner is asked to move that back until December 2019 to be open and fully operational. They've also asked for a reduction in some of those similar tap-on and building permit fees of up to $100,000. Same customary process where if we incur costs, we pass those along. Those would not be eligible to be reduced, but the building permit / tap-on fees would be. So those are basically the changes that they were requiring, was the share of that sales tax, the extended deadline, and the $100,000 in fees.
Honestly, that 2019 deadline is the only thing that's really my sticky point. I'd like to have a little more discussion with the user on that one, trying to figure out why 19 is the date. If that's something that we could move closer, that's a conversation I'd still like to have with them. So,
Have they said why they wanted to?
I don't know, can you elaborate on that at all, Jim, or is it just something that they should elaborate on?
Remember
when
the
they
picture
come?
with the birds?
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, I get it. And so, my feeling is like, look, the incentive is to you, I expect you to break ground, so.
No, I understand your position, but literally they have said, well, if you get X, Y, and Z, we'll do
Right.
it right away.
Well, but right away to them means 2019 though, right?
No, 2019 is kind of unless they would be serious and start right now, you almost cannot start construction in 2017. I mean, you want to start in August, September, or so. Like with the hotel, gas pedal's got to go down now, and just to make 2017, which is a 2018 opening.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's a 2018 start with a 2019 opening. Now, that could be
Right.
early 2019. So, I mean, that's really the problem. You got a 10, 12-month construction process. So it's very difficult. In my mind, I cannot see the theater starting construction this year, just from the way they've acted, and the mayor's nodding his head, he understands.
No, I get it. Everything is so painfully slow, but yes, I get it. Okay. Well, what do you guys think? I mean, what are your thoughts on all this stuff? You guys looked at the numbers now, and just want to hear from the council.
Well, to me, this is definitely a breath of fresh air, hearing this news. something we've been looking forward to in a long time, many years, so, looking forward to, something happening. I'm sure the residents are too. I think they're waiting a long time too for some things to do right here in town, in their backyard. So this sounds like a good start. And, from your words, I'd like to thank our staff too for their hard work and working with you and making things happen, so,
It'd be great to work with.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay with the proposals. I, too, have a little bit of reservations about the 2019 date. I understand the flock of birds. I'd rather set a date that can be pushed back again later if needed, rather than give them an extended time and more reason to drag their feet on making a decision. But I know it probably needs more discussion, and we're at the concept level here, so.
And that particular item would be coming back to you at a future date to be determined, and so that could be semi-negotiated with Jim before it comes back.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 3 months, but, you know, I think I've heard from several of you individually as well that you'd like to see that number pushed up, and the problem is a 6-month window is pretty hard 18 months from now, so.
My concerns is I'm sure everyone up here has sat and talked to residents, right? Everyone's saying, where are they at, what's going on, right, from 2007 on. We've all had our stories, we've all said, this is what we're doing, this is how we changed it changed hands, so-and-so, there's an incentive there in going forward on that. One thing that a recent resident just said that kind of stuck in my head and just said, all right, here's a new incentive. Where does that end? How do I answer that, right? We've got a hotel and a theater, and this could be in 2 years or 3 years. Like, in my mind, that resonates with me because an incentive it's an incentive to build now, as the mayor just said. It's not an incentive that you should come here and do anything like that, because if this, quite honestly, goes another 3 years, Homer Glen can build out and come closer to the highway. We can lose properties, we could be sitting here, with empty. So that's the dilemma that I have in my head, is like, I'd rather say, if there's an incentive, and it's a great incentive to make this thing work, that we can sell it to the residents, and we say, here's an additional, but start designing now, start building now, hotel and theater, if that can work. Get that thing going, because if that lasts 3 years, and all the other junior anchors and anchors, whoever else comes, is gonna be another 3 years after that, and then they're gonna do this is gonna be a 20-year development, and we're gonna be sitting here talking about this, and I don't like these breadcrumbs that we don't leave for future councils. I mean, just sitting there saying like, and with all respect to Chris, saying like, we can always push it back. We can, but at some point we gotta say, we can't build this isn't a city of Lockport development. We're gonna help out as much as we can. I think you guys did a great job. You guys are moving forward and doing this, but I know a lot of the residents, everyone that I'm talking to is like, how much more is it? How much more is it gonna be to tip this over where, like everyone says, then it's all gonna get filled out? And I don't know that answer. I don't know if you know that answer or anything, but we also have to protect the residents on what we're actually doing here. So some of the things that I was thinking of was for the incentive that, let's start designing. That 2019 should really be at 2018, end of 18. If this is an incentive that we're giving ASAP, and we're gonna hold off, and we're also giving, all our rebates for permits and all that stuff, that, we're showing some gumption to give the rebate or the incentives. We'd love for you guys to actually start designing and building. And then if it doesn't happen in 2 years, that maybe it drops down to it's a 50% incentive at that point, and then it's done. Like there's, it's always up to future councils, but something that this council can tell future councils, this is what the intent is. And I know it's on video and stuff, but hardly anybody goes back to that. But to get this thing, if we want to kickstart this, and we're putting up $3 million, and I know it's incentives, it's a tax that we didn't have, but what I'm afraid of is those concerns that the residents are saying. Where would it end? Now, if Home Depot comes back and says, oh, I really want to build here too, but I need an incentive, and Target says, oh, I'm coming back, but I need an incentive, that puts us in a pickle. And I know it's decisions that every municipality does, and everyone has that, but we've got to have that, if we're paying for this, to see some movement, and we want you guys to be the anchor. I think you guys as the hotel and movie theater, and this is just my thought here as a board, But that should be the anchor, that should be the first guy there with Panera and everything else that you're doing, that everyone else should have the confidence and go. Hopefully that's the magic bullet that makes this whole thing work. But us waiting 3 more years for something to happen and somebody to finally build out, I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd love to push this thing up if that's what the board desires.
I'm totally in agreement. I don't think we should move forward a lot quicker than 2019. And whatever we have to do that, you know, I think we've waited long enough. Let's, you know, we're working with them, we're giving the incentives. There should be no reason to be stalling anymore, I don't think. So I think we need to just have a heart-to-heart talk, and if they want these incentives, then they need to work with us too.
Yeah, just a couple of things to follow up. I mean, I understand, you know, Jim's point, and I think it's well taken. You know, some of my thoughts are, I mean, I look at this as these are the pioneers that are coming in here, and I understand that you need the anchors to get the ball rolling. And I don't expect that every time somebody else new wants to come in that you're gonna be coming back and saying, well, we need to give more and more. I'm okay with giving some more incentives to get it kickstarted and get it rolling. And I know that you've been doing everything that you need to do to try and get this rolling, and you've been doing a good job of it. You know, part of me, you know, as far as the residents are concerned, you know, I understand that there's going to be some out there who say, you know, are you just giving everything away? But you know, part of it is, you know, it's better for the residents that they're driving into Lockport instead of driving to Homer Glen or Romeoville, you know, somewhere else. So, you know, it's not just, you know, sales tax revenue to the city that we're looking at. It's betterment in the lives of the residents that live here. And I think that, you know, I think that we could live with giving away some incentives at the beginning to get it rolling, to do that. But I would, like I said before, and Jim and Alderwoman Bartleson reiterated, I'd like to see that date not at 2019 and push a little bit up. And you know, if there's something that's imminent, but it just needs a little bit more time, we can revisit that and maybe kick it back. But that's my thoughts on it.
I think we could do a little give and take, like what Alderman Capadona mentioned, give a little bit extra on tax incentive, and look at, instead of the 2019, just go right down the middle. Let's look mid-2018, July, August, somewhere around there, a year and a half from now. You know, with the incentive agreement, maybe 5 years going to 6 years, 100% toward the development. So kind of like a give and take what Chris just mentioned.
Can the dates be changed to groundbreaking dates instead of completion dates? Are you aware, I mean, is that something would that stir up interest if it's more of a groundbreaking date that they have to start putting a shovel in the ground? Because, I mean, construction season I'm not familiar with the building of a hotel or of a movie theater. I don't know how long the process is, but I know if we have a commitment where they start if they both start in 2017 or early 18, then you're not going to get dragged out to that 2009. I don't know what our chances are of a different type of date.
It sounds to me like, if I'm hearing it right, the concern is that we give an incentive, which, by the way, every municipality gives incentives. This is not something that Lockport's stuck with. Even people that are doing infill work are throwing incentives around. That's just common. It's the you know, buyer's market, right? It's not a seller's market when it comes to retail. Every city, when I go to the ICSC conference, has a booth, and we're all clamoring. So that's not unusual by any stretch of the means. But I think the concern here is give an incentive to this theater group, and then they sit back and say, okay, now we're going to wait to see how things pan out. That's what we're concerned about, at least me. If we give an incentive and it's like, okay, we're doing our plans, we're doing our site construction, we're going through whatever the normal process is, I don't want that normal process to be delayed. The idea that, like, if it takes a year and a half before you start this and go through planning and zoning and design a full theater and get all that stuff done and put a shovel in the ground, it is what it is. I just don't want to see them sitting back waiting to see how the rest of the site pans out if we give an incentive. And that would be my comments to them at a contract if they come back here. So I don't know if that's into my thoughts on this.
Same with the hotel, though, same.
I think the hotel's ready to roll. I think that's different.
That's a separate item.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Isn't
start.
that one 2019?
No. The presentation just said they were gonna start this
But
year.
that's not tied, that's not tying this extra incentive either, right? That's just.
That's the hotel motel tax incentive, separate deals. We've kind of combined them. So I guess to answer JR's question a little bit, yes, anything is negotiable, but I think we discussed building permits, but then companies can pull a building permit for a few bucks and then not continue the project either. So we felt it was better to focus on opening for operations as the incentive. And I think that's part of the reason why you are seeing not necessarily a reluctance to commit, but a reluctance to set a deadline where they lose an incentive. In this marketplace, and I think Jim spoke to it a little bit, you're already, even if they got the green light tomorrow, this wouldn't even be able to open until late summer or fall of 2018. Okay, so my guess is Jim has heard a good message in regards to where you are all at on this. You know, my recommendation is to put the hotel on the action item for February 1st, but not put anything on the next meeting in regards to the theater until Jim can go back and work with his client a little bit and find out what can they move it, what can they live with, can we move it up 6 months, 9 months, you know, whatever it ends up being. And I think at that time, when they get to the point where they can sign a contract and come back to finalize the incentive, then we can try to narrow it down a little better. But again, you're looking at, 6 to 12 month window in regards to a piece of property that's been vacant for 10 years. I think we can try to work this out in some way.
But Ben, you're also talking about 35 months from today, right? I mean, it's still pretty long. So my thought was kind of trying to find a middle ground too. And I thought about building permits, but again, we're waiving almost all fees. There's almost there's not much skin in the game with the building permit. So, but that being said, I'm sure Jim feels like he needs some direction before he can go talk to him.
Well, you've been very helpful, frankly.
Yeah, so my opinion is that for those of us that were on the council when we originally did this, I remember, and at least this is just my thought process, I don't recall what was verbally said, but like, this was a freebie. This was kind of a throw-in part of the deal. They'd have somebody. I'm sure the development group thought that as well. It hasn't turned out that way, but you're hearing what everybody's saying. I think my thought process is there's also probably a little bit of education for us, right? We're not the real estate experts. Hearing some things like here in the hotel, kind of getting the timeline for the way things typically work. It would be open by mid to late 2018. Sounds about reasonable, right? If you come back with the movie theater or with a proposal that says, hey, this is kind of our standard schedule, front to back takes 18 months, they just know they've got to work on some stuff for the first 4 months because of schedule, that gets us to July 2019, at least from only speaking for myself, I'd be okay with that, but there's a little bit of education on my part that I would need to be comfortable with that. Not when I first read the date of 12/31/19, I think I sent Ben an email or a call, I'm like, that feels crazy to me, but I also don't really know either. Knowing how slow things are, going through government and getting built, it still feels
Not a hold up
slow.
on our part, huh?
So I guess that's kind of my thought and direction. I do have some other questions about kind of the hotel side and some of the other stuff, but as far as the date goes, I'd like to see some skin in the game and some commitment and some understanding of how we're going to move forward. And I think at least I'm personally a little flexible on the date. Almost 36 months from now is a pretty far date in my mind, though.
Well, I think one thing that I don't see on the theater sales tax incentive, and I see this sales tax, city sales tax is 2%. I have no problem with the numbers that are on this sheet, but there's also the 1.5% non-home rule sales tax.
It's 1 and 1.
Huh?
It's only 1% and 1%.
And isn't that one of the 2% that's listed here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of grouped in
Yeah.
together.
All right. And nobody's talking about property tax revenue.
Right, they're not asking to reduce anything.
They're not asking for any property tax incentive. You take property tax on, I have no idea how much the theater's gonna be worth. It's gonna be worth more than $1. And they're talking about a $14 million hotel.